Hi guys. Uh, this is going to be a quicker video just about why does design is important, but just extending on that idea. I'm going to try and design some eyes really quickly. Um, the point for this is, well, I'm going to get into a bit more of the design process for uh, a manga and for a story, and I just want you to kind of be able to see behind the scenes of what kind of things are going into it or going to go into it. Um, I'm probably not quite ready yet. Probably need like a few months to improve to be at the level I'd want to be at for finalizing stages of design. So I won't be able to finalize anything, but we'll just go through some iterations of designs for eyes. So something I already have is sort of villainous eyes. I like this idea of shards as part of the shape language. Um, so something like this, and also something that comes up like this. Uh, this could be something that describes uh, an eye type. You can also have something flicking off or whatever. So that's one kind of villainous design. Let's try a different triangular shape. Maybe that is based on the bottom sides of the eyes, and then bring those across so that we have this kind of shape happening at the bottom side and at the top. Something more like this for the eyes. For I'm just trying to think through the potential ways that you could change the triangle design. So this is up, this is down. You can also have maybe the weight of this forward, like this is forward. So a triangle that comes across this way, but then has a heavier aspect along this side. Dot dot dot, and has. Would you make this aspect smaller? Smaller. Let's try it. It doesn't have to get too sort of drastic. But that is quite. That's an interesting eye shape. Um, just because it kind of makes them look bunched up, congested. Like I don't know. Someone's really. It's almost like the eyebrow has come down in how it creates that appearance. Um, while this is kind of like their eyes are fluttering upwards, so they've got like a strain on some of the muscles behind the eye that are kind of causing them to have that more of that attitude. Well, this one, I'm not quite sure what attitude this gives. It's more just having a thick, maybe weighty or heavy um, weight of like history behind them. So maybe this is hatred. This is vendetta. Because they're looking up, they're kind of ambitious, right? And this one is obstinance, like stubbornness. Um, so stubborn. So that's cool. So we have like some shape language there just for the triangle eyes. Um, let's try some eyes that are more curvy in nature, so have a fluid, constant curve. So with that, that's going to be with stroke language that that we'll have to create it with. So it'll be the difference between like when you change and cross over with the muscle, with the muscles and stuff. So oh no no. So this is anti-clockwise and then moving into a clockwise and then into a small anti-clockwise. The obvious one is the kind of what Cleopatra's eyes, where they do this sort of thing, and then you can just come down with a sweeping motion. So what kind of eye is this? Obviously, there's a bit of sultriness to it, but I'm not sure what this eye is just yet. Maybe more animalistic, but I do have some kind of ideas for some villains to have eyes like this, and maybe add some geometric shapes in the eyes for a bit more interest and fascination. So, da da da. And you could even add like maybe a hexagonal sort of pupil or something, just to make it interesting. Okay, let's try another one where, okay, so this one was pretty even, and then it was just a simple under sweep for this part of the eye. How would we change that? Would we maybe try to widen it? Would we try, maybe let's try first with this pointing down, so like the Cleopatra eye sort of pointing down, and see what that does to the eye. Do a similar sort of sweep, but have this pointing down, and then this will have to come under and follow up. So this represents a fold in a way, or it starts to represent a fold. And so if we take this part of the eye, we can sweep that, make that a simplified form. Always in design, you want simplified forms because they make it much lighter for the audience to perceive and to remember. So anything that's simplified, so when you're writing a story, you always want to simplify your perspective or point of view or your message so that people can read it without carrying too much weight. It's also something I'm aiming towards in these videos, is over time to reduce the weight of them so that they're easier, less likely to waste anyone's time, because everyone's got a busy life and all that sort of stuff. So you never want to beat around the bush when it comes to design. You want to have a strong impact as quick as possible, that is as memorable as possible and as interesting as possible, which might sound like a limitation in some ways. So I'm thinking about pupil. What kind of pupil would this have? What kind of emotion do I see in it already? I can see kind of two of them. One is like uninterested, but that kind of makes it look like it's a right eye rather than a left eye. So it kind of takes away what I'm going for in this design. Maybe so like a bigger eye, because maybe this person's more imposing as to their kind of presence. So they are taking in more of the world and are kind of able to create like a lot of pressure on someone. So that's an interesting eye design. All these eye designs are probably like the curved ones are going to be more realistic than the geometric ones, obviously. Um, And let's maybe do another eye. Um, that one has down, that one has up. Do we want to maybe make the front side have like a curve? Like maybe the front side has a curve like this, which sweeps back and up. This might be a silly kind of design for an eye, so I'm not sure, but I know that cats, for example, have sweeping designs like this for their eye. And then they often have like a just a strong spherical sort of undercurve. So maybe this is a oversimplified eye. Um, this is kind of a disturbing eye in a way. It's kind of like a hood. Um, there is something I like about that because it's almost horrible. So I want to think about like how can I make it seem more horrible, less like an approachable sort of dewdrop, lovely kind of thing, and something more horrid. Mm, it still looks dewdroppy, but maybe that is also a feature to it. Maybe that's not a bad thing for even a villainous eye, is to just have it be a little bit too positive. So it's a false read that you're getting from this. So what do they call that? Like a brown noser, or maybe a tattletale, treachery, betrayal. Okay, let's just say this is betrayer. What's this? This is like scowling, like someone that hasn't given something up. Scowling. Or maybe that's anger. And this is some sort of, maybe it's power. So that person has power, they don't have like a vendetta or anything. Okay, let's try some. So this makes everything look more realistic than it should. This makes everything look more geometric than it should, and next to each other, they don't really work. So the designs would need to blend together in a different way. Um, but let's think again about some different designs. So realism is when you do things with where your model has a much smaller eye. Let's just say that's like the nose structure. Like the model will have like a much smaller eye in realism, but in animation, you'll make the eyes sort of potentially as big as the eye socket or maybe even bigger. And you can do something where you have like a bucket eye where the bottom is kind of like an acorn where it's much larger. So let's try some acorn sort of bucket eyes. Let's just try the simplest one first, which is just a kind of an archway. Um, I will just make one side heavier just as like a suggestion to see what a suggestion does to the eyes. So the reason I don't go out and look at other designs when I'm going into ideation is I want to have as crisp of a connection to my own thought processes first, and I want to start pushing out from there so that if I was to go out and take a look um, at other people's designs, that I would have more of my own opinion first. So I never want to do something in a way where I'm looking at other people and then sort of envious or depending upon them to perform a role that I want to be doing. Like, oh, I didn't know how to design, I didn't know where to start. Like, I don't want to make that kind of admission. Obviously, if you're not worried about that and you've maybe spent a lot of time designing your own eyes, you could just go out and you know what you're looking for and whatever, and there's no problem with that. But for me, 100% just going to design my own um, my own designs before I look to anything else. Um, I I kind of have like a theory in mind where bucket eyes, these kind of buckety eyes, tend to represent like eye sockets as much as everything else. And like even these ovals that are represented are kind of representations of the eyelids as much as anything else. So, hmm, hmm. And one more. So these are kind of poor. I don't really like these bucket eyes very much. It's because my implementation of it, something's quite off. Obviously, this one was meant to be super basic, so whatever. Mm, is there some way I could make it more interesting? Let's let's try the Cleopatra thing like this. Add in a little bit of that second part, and then hmm, maybe a triangular aspect to it. So that one like this, narrowing in, and then maybe something triangular. See what that does. There is something I like about that. It's quite open, which is good. It's very light. Mm, there is something nice to that. Hmm. But it seems almost. Hmm. I don't know what even emotions these represent. This is seething, so they're just kind of like thinking on something and dwelling. This is maybe ambitious or competitive, focused, alert. That's alert. That's interesting. Um, who, me? Sorry, I was just looking at the betrayer and I was just like, what kind of describes this to me? And I was like, oh, who, me? All right. Then this one, what is this? I mean, because this is just, that just looks like an eyebrow in the way that it's represented. I would say it's just this person is dark, brooding. Yeah, brooding. So it wouldn't necessarily be evil to be brooding or something, but it's there. So here we have some shape language, um, and some ideas to work with that can then be bounced off of. And so in order to create a character and to create a design for a character, like a main character or, well, any of the featuring characters, you have to start thinking about what would the different designs be? How would their nose be? Like what kind of nose does someone has? Do they have a different nose? Do they have a different eye design? Um, what features do we want to communicate on the eye design? What is the symbology of each aspect? So this might say like, oh, there's a betrayer, that seems like a good fit. Maybe you could just throw it straight in for a certain character, and I do really like this one, and I really like this one. I even like this one, this stubborn one. This one's really nice because it has a really strong characterization, even though it's almost counterintuitive to have like a really thick edge here, and then also have a thick edge on this one. It's such a weird thing, but it also makes sense because it kind of represents, it suggests that there's a permanent shadow on the inside of their eyes, which gives a kind of like a baggy quality. And I think when it comes to eyes, there's that confusion of what part of the eye is what, and people are more open to interpreting eyes based on all the features around the eye and not just the eye itself. So that's quite interesting. I like this too. This tells me quite a lot. So, ambition. Um, there seems to be something about how this eye is thin at this end, like tapers up this end and becomes thicker down this end, that helps represent some kind of ambition. So, this alertness is also interesting. I think this comes from having an angular point. So, when you have a smoother point, like down here, this seems to represent some sort of calmness or way of seeing the world. See this here where it's saying hate, it's like a stop to their perspective. A point is kind of like this adding this angularity, this sharpness to the way that they're seeing the world. And here with this stubbornness, this just seems kind of like flat, like he's seeing the world just continuously the same. Very interesting. So the outer corner of the eye represents something different than the upper corner of the eye on this side. So this hatred has blocked out what this one's using. This one is blocking it out, but by force. So they can see it, but they're just blocking it out by force. And this one, it's affecting them, it's bending them. This one, this is very relaxed. They're not worried about pressure from above, essentially because they've got power. So this is relaxed, this is relaxed. It's very interesting. Here, pushing back. This is like pushing back against whatever forces are above them. So it's more than just ambitious, it's exploiting. And down here, it's relaxed, but that makes me think this is way more relaxed than their ambition is showing, which tends to be like that's two-faced. So that's interesting because it's not consistent all the way through. Brooding, I don't know. So if we take what we understand from the other ones, this one is calm. So that's not really doing anything for us. Um, this one we know is maybe a bit about ambition. Maybe it's a bit stubborn. So there's some kind of force coming in on this person that's pushing in on them. They're still relatively calm though. So they're just kind of like waiting and biding their time. It's a very slender, like it's almost stoic, because they're resisting forces against them, but they're remaining calm. So this could actually be a virtue, because they seem to be facing the energy in some sort of way. Now, the eye itself doesn't communicate that. So you could create like some other eye that is maybe making it look more virtuous. Um, Maybe represent like that they're struggling and that there's a reason why they may be struggling. Um, so maybe take that closer to the tear duct, because then you kind of maybe show a little bit of that they have emotion. Um, and that could do something. Maybe you could even add a hint of this vendetta idea, because maybe they are being broken down a little bit as to what they're doing. So maybe there is an angulation here that makes them have to like do something. Um, and maybe we can just break down this side and bring this down more, and then end this off like this so it looks a little bit more flowy. And what would we do with the outside? Maybe we can just make it come down past, because this one's kind of interesting. And then we have an eye design rather than something that doesn't have any design. And we might also have the idea of some story behind it, because we're understanding some of the properties that are affecting the eyes and the eye design, or the shape language. Um, this one seems even more relaxed. So when you seem to droop this aspect of the eye, this outer aspect of the eye, like this one looks like, it looks like it's more relaxed than it should be, where this has like a similar property to this. So there's pressure hitting down, so there's lots of pressure, and then this here is drooping, so they're almost, it's like they've lost the battle. That's why it comes across as them seething. While this one's alert. Why is it alert? I think because this line here is so tense. It seems like they've correctly shielded from whatever the pressure is, because they're being prepared. And it makes you think like you need to be prepared in order to counter something. And then this means they got a plan, because they got this angular action across here. So then that looks like they got some sort of plan. So they've shielded something and they've planned something. That's a very interesting idea, but behind some shape language there, that we've stumbled onto. That's curious. Anyways, I just wanted to show you some ideas of what you might do, even in a super short session like this, as to shape language, eye design, and stuff like that. And in order in order to set up and design characters, sure, you could say, oh, this is 9 different characters and I can create 9 different characters, but they might not be 9 different characters of the same book, or novel. And so essentially you want to just consider all the different changes that you can do to the design of something, of a feature, whether that be a nose, an eye, hair, and you just want to go through and think about each aspect. And that is part of design. So when you're drawing, you're doing something that's different than a writer. So a writer is going to think like in terms of words. The words will be I don't know. Maybe the word is this person is brooding, but you wouldn't know how to represent brooding in like the way that you wanted to represent brooding unless you already had or had came across a design that helped you describe it. And then you'd have to ask, is this in the right style? Does this suit the rest of the people in the story? So everything's a moving part, everything is shifting, and you have to kind of juggle between all these different ideas. And as an illustrator, you're kind of doing it backwards. You have to design a few different ideas, few different concepts, concepting around an idea. You might even have the goal of how can we make brooding eyes? And then you have to create enough variation and then go out and check and double check that you've got all the variations that you need. And then you have to make sure that it has a fit, that it fits into the larger design idea. And this is what an art director is generally doing. So an art director is going to be selecting what fits the larger design idea. While you might have some workhorses just working on the concepting, where they just constantly concept. So when you look at yourself and say designing a manga, you have to think about uh, maybe you just workhorsing right now, just setting up some concepts, but also sometimes maybe you're putting on the hat of the art director and then thinking about what fits, where, why. Um, and there's those kinds of considerations. I just thought I'd show this, and because we will eventually be getting into me designing the actual manga, but first I do have to get a little bit better, but we'll see as things go. All right, cool. Cheers, guys. Bye.